Welcome to the micro training. Say goodbye to anger, and we are going to be revealing some secrets. And this is why you should listen to me, because I have the answer to where you want to be. So let me introduce myself. And if I can move that slide, maybe it will not let me do that. Anyway, my name is Paula Oleska, and I'm a mindset maverick, procrastination wrangler, motivation maximizer, and a developer of the brain upgrade system that allows me to achieve radical, rapid results. And I've been working with, I estimate, around 8,000 people in 5 different countries over the 30 years in my practice. And one of the things that allowed me to achieve those incredible results with people is a new approach to resolving emotional issues. And that's what we are going to be talking about today. Say goodbye to anger that will save you from unexpected angry outbursts. And it will give you a path or a pathway to a simple and powerful way to eliminate your triggers, which possibly will save your relationships. And it will give you another clue about how to effectively communicate about what you really want. So let's look at what we are going to cover. We'll be here for just 30 minutes, and I will make sure that we will talk only about the relevant issues, such as why anger keeps coming back. 3 mistakes of working with anger that people often make. And very important, how to stay calm in the current climate of irritability, hostility, and frustration. Then we will look at 3 of the frequently asked questions. And then at the end, I'm going to invite you to join a program that I developed specifically to give people help if they want to go beyond helping themselves and working on their own, which is what I'm going to be doing, giving you clues about that in this very short and content-packed program. So if that appeals to you, type yes in the chat. And now let's move on to, so I'm going to look at the chat. Yes, great, thank you. So I'm going to now go into our first topic, which is why does anger keep coming back? Many people wonder about that. And the first reason why anger is coming back is because the current approaches to eliminating anger are ineffective. And I frequently have an experience of that with my clients. Even today, one of my clients was saying, something is bothering me, but I'm trying to make it not bother me. Now, when you think about that, is that really possible? And another example of another client that I'll be referring to throughout this mini workshop is, let's call her Lisa for now. And when she came to a session, she said that she was attending a workshop where one of the participants started to confront the instructor, and the instructor got into a lengthy exchange with that participant. And my client started to feel uncomfortable, scared, irritable, and angry. And she was saying to herself, I should detach myself from this situation. Why should I get angry? I don't even know this person. I should not be angry or scared. Well, obviously, she didn't manage to do that, because even a few days later, when she came to a session, she still had that reaction. So we talked about that. And this is something I constantly teach to my clients and everybody else who will listen, that you cannot resolve your emotional issues with your mind. So the anger will keep coming back because it's not, you cannot talk yourself out of feeling it. But there is another reason, very, very important reason why anger keeps coming back, and that is because anger has a message. anger has a message, has a very important message that is trying to get your attention so that you will take care of it. Okay, so it's tugging on your sleeves and saying, hey, pay attention to me, because the only purpose, and I'll be coming back to that also throughout the program, that the only reason why you have anger is because it's trying to tell you something. So there is a simple and powerful way to eliminate anger forever, and that is to understand what that message is. And when you do that, it will stop coming back, because you will have solved the underlying problem. So if that makes sense to you, type yes in the chat. Thank you for the yeses. And let's move on to our next topic, which is 3 mistakes that I have observed that people make working with anger. The first one is fear of feeling and expressing anger. Anger has a lot of judgments around it, and I frequently hear that from clients, friends, acquaintances, and other people who I even overhear sometimes. And that is that anger leads to violence. This is something that one of my clients expressed when she got angry, but she didn't want to get into it because she said her experience showed her that anger leads to violence. So that's why she didn't want to. That's a mistake, of course, but this is why she didn't want to get into anger. Anger has a lot of judgments, also making people feel that if they get angry, they are bad. Or if something or someone makes you angry, then you are just as bad as that thing. Or you're just a bad person because anger is not a good thing to have, and it's just unkind, unjust, and things like that. So many people fear even acknowledging that they feel anger, and especially expressing it. There is no good way to express anger in the conventional way, but there is a healthy way that I'm going to get into a little bit later. So another major mistake that I touched on a little bit just a moment ago is to use your mind to resolve your anger or any other emotional issue and try to get rid of it. So you need to understand, and I'll come back to that again a little bit later, that using your mind is completely not effective when it comes to working with anger or any feeling, because your feelings come from the body and they are in the body. So let's say if you hurt your foot, you wouldn't want to just say like, I should not be feeling this hurt. It should not be there. Why should I feel this? And I'm going to make sure that my mind knows that I should not feel it. That would be absurd, wouldn't it? Right? You wouldn't do that. You know that if your foot hurts, then you need to pay attention to it. Well, it's the same thing with your feelings. They are not mental, even though most of our Western approaches to emotions assumed that feelings are created by thinking. I want to reassure you that the current neuroscience says it's just the opposite, that feelings are in the body and they affect your mind. So, of course, there is a reciprocal relationship, and you can have an emotional reaction to a thought, but primarily the feelings emerge from your body. They are physiological reactions, and that's why using your mind to resolve it is ineffective. You may calm it down, you may, it may be a Band-Aid, maybe you need a Band-Aid, but it's not going to actually resolve it, and that's why it's going to keep coming back. Another mistake that I have frequently observed is that people say, I don't need help. So do you have people in your life who seem to be angry or easily triggered into anger, but when you suggest to them that they should get some help, they say like, no, I don't need help. I can handle it. I can figure it out. So if you have encountered people like that, in your personal or professional life, type yes in the chat. I certainly have. So thank you for your yeses. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your participation. And I certainly have. And it makes life really difficult, doesn't it, to live with people like that because they don't want to get help. So these are the 3 mistakes that I have observed. And there are other mistakes, but these are 3 fundamental ones. So to summarize, so far you've learned that the fear of feeling and expressing anger is a mistake, that using your mind to resolve it is a mistake, and that not wanting to get help, not acknowledging that you need help, is also a mistake. So that leads us to a very important topic about how to stay calm in the current climate of irritability, hostility, and frustration. So would you agree that people seem to be very short-tempered these days? If you feel that they are, if you have encountered that, again, type yes in the chat. There are, this has been in the news a lot. Even one of the publications I frequently read has an article, The Anxiety Epidemic. And you probably have read a lot of other things about that. People just seem to be very irritable, and that leads to unexpected angry confrontations. You are online and someone gets annoyed that maybe someone is trying to get in front of you or in front of them, and they have an angry outburst. So that may even be happening to you from time to time. Maybe you are a little bit more short-tempered with your colleagues or family members, and that is completely understandable and justifiable. Now, let's take a look at what we can do about that. So the first thing you need to do is to understand where your anger and your reaction is coming from. So this is something I keep repeating, which is it's not coming from your mind. You need to understand what it's coming from, where it is in your body. And the next thing is you need to, so before you eliminate the triggers, you need to understand what the trigger was. So for instance, in the case of this client we are calling Lisa, who came to a session reporting that she had experienced this reaction of fear and anger in the workshop when one of the participants was having a lengthy interaction with the instructor. She was first of all trying to talk herself out of it, but when she came to a session and she was able to acknowledge that she actually did feel those feelings, then we started to work on that, and she was very quickly able to trace it back to an incident from childhood. There was a time when she was about 5 years old when one of her relatives was playing with her and playfully put a blanket over her. And for a while that felt like fun, but then she tried to get out of it. And she was telling this relative that, stop, I don't want this anymore, but the relative wasn't paying attention. So Lisa developed a reaction, imprinted a reaction of feeling helpless, powerless, fearful of being overpowered, and angry because she couldn't get out of it. So strangely enough, that imprint then triggered her reaction during the workshop, which had nothing to do with a relative or a blanket or being trapped in a closed space. But she was able to identify the trigger. So that is a very important way to stay calm. Once you understand what is triggering that, you can disarm that trigger. And this is what we did in a session with Lisa. So she was able to then effectively communicate what she really wanted. When her grown-up mind came back, she said that if she was able to do that during the workshop, she would have, A, gotten attention of the instructor, and B, would have communicated to the instructor that she was feeling uncomfortable, and C, that she wanted to hear more from the instructor and not so much from the participant. And she was concerned that it was taking up too much time from the overall program. So she was able to she would have been able to effectively communicate what she really wanted, instead of having a reaction of, stop it, what are you doing? And things like that, which we often do when we are angry. So again, to recap what it will take for you to stay calm. So first of all, understand where you feel that anger and acknowledge that you feel it, and not to try to talk yourself out of it. Just like my client earlier today, who said, I'm trying to not let it bother me. So allow yourself, let it bother you. You have to acknowledge that this is where you are. Then you can find out where that's coming from. And if you allow yourself that, if you give yourself that permission, you very often will be able to connect to some earlier experience. Sometimes it's childhood and sometimes it's later, but there's usually something that imprinted a reaction, and that is triggering your current reaction. And you can disarm that trigger. You can do something to make sure that you don't react to it. And that will free your grown-up mind to communicate what you really want. And this is how you can resolve the situation. So any situation. So if that makes sense to you, type yes in the chat. Thank you for the yeses. And now one of my clients also had a question, what do you do in a moment when you're angry and you don't have time to go through this process? It's a very challenging situation, because sometimes, let's say my client was in a workshop, this client we call Lisa, she was in a workshop, so she wasn't confronted with anybody. So she had time to think about it or process that if she remembered to do that. But sometimes we are in a conversation with someone and the anger gets triggered. So the problem is that when you're actually angry in that kind of very close personal situation, there's not a whole lot you can do other than what the conventional wisdom tells you, which is breathe, count to 10, and tell yourself to calm down as much as you can. Because while you're in that state, it's very difficult. However, if you are able to use the process I just outlined, it's going to disarm the triggers. So you will have less of a charge, less of a possible reaction later on when you're actually confronted with something. So in one of the sessions with my clients, what came up was that he is very sensitive to criticism, and he was treating whenever someone criticized what he was doing, especially in his family, he would feel that he was being told that he's doing something wrong, and he had a big charge about that. So we did a process to resolve that, and he said that when he was thinking of a recent conversation where he felt that he was being made wrong and that made him very angry, that he actually was not angry once we did that exercise, and he was able to dissolve that trigger. And he said that I can listen to this person, not feel angry, not get defensive, and I can actually hear what she's saying. So this process is a blueprint for prevention of future angry outbursts. If you actually employ that for yourself, you will be able to stay calm in more situations and not feel triggered. But as I said, when you get angry, well, just do the best you can to not to blurt things out to the other person that you will regret later. So again, if you like that prescription, type yes in the chat. Moving on. So thank you for your yeses. And let's look at some frequently asked questions. So one of the questions is, why do I always get triggered by the same people and the same situations? So the answer is similar to what I was discussing just a moment ago, which is you have a certain trigger, and that trigger is going to be activated when you interact with certain people or are in certain situations. Some people have a problem with dealing with authority figures, or what people they perceive as authority figures. So whether it's going to be your spouse or your boss, or even a friend who is taller and bigger than you may have that trigger. And every time you interact with that person, you will feel triggered. So how you can get out of that is using that process that we were just describing, which is identifying where that trigger is coming from and doing something to disarm it. Then the next frequently asked question is, what if I've done everything and nothing seems to work? I love that question because that confirms what I'm teaching, which is you've tried everything in what I call the old paradigm, the mind-based approaches, and they don't work. So if someone says, I've tried everything and nothing seems to work, that's because the approaches mind-based are not effective. You need to really engage the body in some way. And I think Bill knows that. Bill does something like that in his own wonderful way. And I do that. And these are very simple things to learn. So if someone says they've tried everything and nothing worked, that's because the method that uses the mind to resolve emotional issues is ineffective. And then another frequently asked questions, of course, there are more questions, but we are just going to focus on these three. Is there something I can do by myself? Well, yes, there is. So this is the process I was just describing. So you can learn how to observe yourself in such a way that you will understand that you are having an emotional reaction, whether it's anger, fear, or something else. And then you can figure out where that is coming from. So in the case of Lisa, as I said, that went back to that incident in childhood where she felt trapped and not heard when she was trying to get out of the situation. In the case of a few other of my clients, it came from a parent, a mother or a father, always saying like, oh, what do you know? Or this is wrong, don't do that, or being punished for doing something that the parent didn't like. So these triggers stay with you for a very long time because they are imprinted in your body. They are processed in your senses, and that's why they cannot be resolved with your mind. But you can learn to identify where they are, where they come from, those original situations, and then do something to put yourself in a different situation, to disarm that trigger, so it will no longer hurt you. And then you can, just like that example with Lisa that I was discussing, once your adult mind comes back, you can then design the type of communication that will help you resolve that situation. So in one of the workshops, when I was teaching how to deal with anger, one woman said that she always felt angry with her coworker, but she didn't fully understand why. So we looked at that, and she realized that she felt that the coworker was being treated more favorably by the bosses and was able to get away with stuff and was getting a raise when this participant in the workshop wasn't. So once we identified that trigger, we didn't even go into the past about where that was coming from. But once she realized what it was, she was able to design communication. And she said, I will tell my bosses that I need a raise because of X, Y, and Z. She was able to rationally list the things why she deserved a raise. And she also said something about that if my colleague is getting time off because she needs to do something for her family, then I need to get that as well. And she was very decisive about that. So it completely changed her attitude. So yes, you can do things by yourself. However, if you would like to get some help, to get that help on a deeper level, be able to find more ways to disarm your triggers, I would like to invite you to a program that I created for that purpose, how to solve your emotional issues without talking about them for hours. And this is your magical toolbox because it includes several very magical elements, such as the magic circle of rings, magic words, and magic moves that help you completely solve your emotional issues. It's a 6-week program online through video and also with live coaching sessions with me. And you will get a lot out of it. I've been teaching it in that formal form for a couple of years. Before that, I was just using that with my clients and teaching it generally in an emotional intelligence workshop. But if you enroll in this program, you will become effortlessly your own anger solver or emotional issue solver, because it will go beyond anger. And you will save yourself energy wasted on unnecessary overreactions. If you would like that, type yes in the chat, because we don't want to have unnecessary overreactions, and we often do that. So I think you may have some friends who call you and endlessly rehash what they feel, how they are unhappy, how they cannot cope with this and that, and they keep repeating themselves. So this is what you will save yourself from. You will not have to do that yourself, and you will have a better way of handling your friends who do that. And you will save money eliminating years of ineffective therapy. So I want to make sure that you understand, I'm not saying that all therapy is ineffective, but a lot of therapy is ineffective because it uses mind-based approaches. So one of my recent clients told me that he was in therapy for 2 years, but he's still as angry as he was when he started. He didn't know the therapy did not help him identify what was causing it and how to deal with it. He just learned a lot of facts, which I'm not going to go into, but it's all erroneous. So you will not have to waste your time and money on getting wrong advice and ineffective therapy, and you will be able to keep your clear head in different challenging situations, like these different people like I've been describing, like Lisa, and that client of mine who was no longer triggered into feeling defensive, but he was able to listen to the other person. And you will be able to clearly communicate what you want. And there's much more. During the 6 weeks, you'll be mastering a complete set of tools you'll be able to use on your own in about 15 to 20 minutes to solve any emotional upset. And in order to make it very easy for you to enroll in this program, I decided to offer it a very, very low price. When I taught it last year, people paid $1,400. And this year I was going to charge $997. But when I was thinking of designing this workshop, I thought, let's make it irresistible. Let's half the price. And I hope that many people will be more interested in enrolling. So you will get the whole magical toolbox, the whole 6 weeks program on video, and also coaching sessions with me for only $497. And all you need to do is click on the link, and believe it or not, this link on your screen is clickable. See, if I move my cursor over it, it changes. And if I click on it, it will go to the sales page. When you go to the sales page, you can read all the copy that goes more into the benefits of why this program will help you, and then go to the green button that says click here to solve your emotional upsets in record time. Enter the code CASH500, complete the form, and you'll be enrolled. So I'm going to put that also in the chat. in case there is something wrong with that link and you can't click on it. So you can also do it through the chat. So let's make it to everyone. And to make it completely irresistible, I would like to offer you a super special bonus, which is a 45-minute session personally with me. We'll meet on Zoom and we'll explore one of your personal triggers for anger, and we'll do some specific things to eliminate them. So you will know, you'll end up not beating yourself up anymore for having angry responses or being triggered by the same people in the same situations. And like I described earlier, you will be able to restore your clear thinking and discover more options about handling your personal challenges. So that session has $350 value, but it's free for you when you enroll today in this program. And one person already enrolled, and I'm really happy to tell you that. So be the next one, and I'll be happy to work with you for the 6 weeks. The program will start sometime at the end of October or beginning of November, and I will discuss the details with the participants, because it's going to be a small group. It's going to be 5 to 10 people, and therefore everybody will get a lot of personal attention. So I'm going to keep this on the screen for a moment, and I'll be here to I'll hang out a little bit longer. We'll stop the recording and I will hang out a little bit longer to answer questions.